All right, everybody, welcome back. You were shouting numbers. I didn't hear that. What was it? 1522? Is that what you said? Sure. Okay. Welcome back to the Interactive Bible Study. Don't forget this is interactive. If you have questions, raise your hand. If you have questions in the chat, type them in the chat. Hi, Ryan. You have a question. What's your question?
I love everyone here.
That's not a question. But we appreciate it. We love you too, Ryan. If you have a question on YouTube, type it in the chat, and Zippy will raise his hand and get Dr. J's attention. All right, we're going to be in Exodus chapter 15, 22, he thinks. So if you're following your Bible, turn there. If you're on YouTube, remember to open up a separate tab. Don't open up the Bible app or Bible Gateway or wherever you go to your Bible in this same tab, or else you will lose us, and then you can't follow us. So open up another tab, and then open up your Bible. All right? I don't have a song. It's been a very busy weekend, so I didn't have time to... What? You want to do the one we just did? I don't even remember what we just did. Yeah, I don't remember the rest of it. It was Jingle Bells. It was like our vids, and please give a like or a share, I'm not sure. And if you subscribe to this channel, then you'll know we're on the air. That's all I got. Sorry. Like I said, that literally just happened 5 seconds ago. So, but we do have Christmas stuff coming up. So, we went if you missed 2 of them already. So we went caroling on Friday night. If you didn't come, you missed it, and it was really good. Even though it was raining and miserable outside, we still had a really good time, and I know we touched people's hearts. Like Dr. J said, they were standing in their front doors singing and crying. So if you want to come again, or if you want to come, if you didn't come the first time, we're going again. When is that?
18th?
The 18th. I was going to say the 19th. I'm glad you corrected me. The 19th. The 18th. The 18th.
It never did any good to correct you, boy.
The 18th. So if you want to go caroling with us, we're going on the 18th. We're going to go to different people's houses, not the same people, because we've already caroled with them. So, but we'll still touch their hearts. Breakfast with the Wise Men's coming up this Saturday. Okay, so bring all your little kids that you have. Bring your neighbors. Bring their neighbors and their friends and everybody to come have breakfast with the Wise Men, and they'll hear about Jesus. And then we've got Christmas stuff. It's coming up on Christmas really fast. And so Christmas Eve pageant, what are you pointing at? Yeah, Back to the Manger. Back to the Manger is the Christmas pageant. It's Back to the Future themes. We want as many kids as possible to be involved in it. So if you know kids that should be involved in it, let us know. And we'll try and convince their parents, and you should try and convince their parents to let them in. Like I said, they could be a sheep or a rock, but we're going to get them in there, and their parents will get here and they'll hear about Jesus. Okay? Are you guys ready to go? I think that's all I have. Is there anything else? Do you have anything else? Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's go.
There is another possible interpretation as to why people were sitting in the rain, crying when we were Christmas caroling. It is possible that the sound we were making was so far from song that they were singing in to try to help us get on key, and that the tears in their eyes were caused by the pain in their ears from the cacophony they were hearing in their yard. It's possible. Okay, forgive me for doing that. I know I shouldn't do that, and people will complain because I did it, and I don't want to mess up the tablecloth. Isn't it pretty? People work to make things beautiful, Cornerstone, and we should appreciate them. Now, we are in Exodus chapter 15, verse 22, unless someone wants to argue with me. That's where I think we are, but I'm open. It's open to debate. Okay, I will listen. Okay, nobody's debating. Remarkable. It says, after the song was done, it says, then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Sur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That's why the place is called Marah. The Hebrew word Marah means bitter. Okay, probably means that when they got to this place, the the water was in some way foul. It may have been just simply salt water, okay, but it was not potable. I love to say that word. Okay, if you've ever dug a well, you get to know all about potable. Okay, the water's not potable means they can't drink it. Okay, and they are thirsty because they have gone 3 days into the desert without finding water. So the reasonable assumption is that whatever supply of water they had brought with them was exhausted or near exhausted. Okay? All right, now, I just need to set this up for you, okay? Because you need to remember what just happened. Okay, remember they were caught between the sea and the Egyptians, and God opened the water of the sea so that they were able to cross, but not just to cross. They didn't even get their feet wet. There was no mud on the bottom. They went through on dry ground. Okay, when they had all safely arrived at the other side, okay, the Egyptians, having decided to follow them, were rushing down into the place, the sea, the bottom of the sea, and apparently the ground was not dry for the Egyptians because their wagon wheels are getting stuck and they're having a big mess. And all of a sudden, when all the Hebrews are safe on the other side, the water caves in and Pharaoh and his army is destroyed. That's what they just went through. Okay? It's what they just went through. Okay? So they're now in the desert, and they have run out of water. And it says, so the people grumbled against Moses, saying, what are we supposed to drink? Okay? Zippy and I were having a conversation. Okay, I cannot remember whether it started last night and fell over into this morning, or whether it just started this morning. But Zippy said, is Zippy in the room? Oh, good, I can say it. I can blame it all on him. Okay, Zippy said that the people of God are morons. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I would never say anything like that about the church. Never would I say anything like that. That the people of God were morons. Not Mormons, morons. Okay? All right? Now the point of the comment had to do with something. Okay? I'm not sure what the something was. But there are occasions when the people of God act like morons. And this is one of those occasions. They have just come through the experience of this great miracle. God working on their behalf to protect them from their enemies. And now they're thirsty, 3 days, running out of water. So what do? They grumble. And it is important for you to notice who it is they grumble against. It is all the fault of their leader. Huh? Oh, for them it is. Well, no, the second time. I mean, but come on. Right. I mean, it's like the second time. But they grumble against their leader. They are questioning whether or not Moses is listening to God. Are you sure you're tuned in? Okay. Is your radio playing the right station? Okay. I mean, they begin to say bad things against the leadership because they themselves are unhappy. They are afraid. Okay. They are facing a circumstance which is beyond their control. They're in the desert. There's nothing to drink. The water they found is bad. They're hopeless. So what do? They complain against the leader. Okay? It's not uncommon on all kinds of levels of existence among us. I mean, if we're unhappy with something that's going on in our life, how many of us tend to blame the president? Okay, or the Congress, or the governor. Okay, see, everybody wants to blame the governor. Okay? Don't lose the point here. It's the burden of being the guy at the top. Okay? If you're up there, you can be 100% sure that somebody is going to have some complaint about what you're doing, but it's not usually related to anything you're doing. It's related to something that's going on in their life. They're afraid because they are confronted with a circumstance they themselves cannot handle. So what they do is come at the leader. Now, in this case, they come at Moses because he is the representative of God, and this is all God's fault. Okay, if God had just left them alone, they'd still be slaves in Egypt. Okay, and they wouldn't have to worry about any of this stuff. Yes, sir, way back there. They might even attempt to crucify their leader, was Jeff's comment. That's absolutely right. Okay, what they're doing is what is normal for people to do, but what we as Christians should look at the Bible and say, wait a minute, okay? Wait a minute, particularly if you're going through remarkable circumstances, miraculous circumstances, okay? Particularly if God's hand is moving among you, all right? But it's not what they do. And what they say to Moses is kind of snotty. What do we expect to drink? Okay, now none of you would ever make a snotty comment like that. Okay? But in other places, the people of God are like that. Snotty. All right? And they make their comments in an inappropriate and disrespectful way. They don't say, excuse me, Leader Moses, but we're like running out of water. What are we going to do? They get many expect to drink. Okay? And the comment is offensive. I'm sorry, but it's offensive. And the offense comes out of them. Moses does not deserve the offense that the people were giving him. All right? It goes on. Verse 25. It says, then Moses cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. Now, Moses says, God help me. What am I going to do? Okay? And I picture this in my mind maybe differently than some of you do. There's this piece of wood laying on the ground. And Moses picks up the piece of wood, and he chucks it. Okay? In order to relieve the stress that he is feeling, he chucks the wood into the water of Marah. Okay? He just picks that thing up and he lets it go. Now, I'm just going to tell you this so you understand. Sometimes when you are experiencing deep distress, the best thing you can do is let it go. I mean, give the piece of wood a chuck. Okay? I'm using the word deliberately. Okay? Give it a nice toss. Okay? Okay? And that's what he does. He lets go his frustration. He throws the thing into the water. Okay? Okay, she says it says that the Lord showed him the piece of water. Yeah, there it is. Okay, there it is. Okay, do you see the piece of wood? I mean, in your mind, when you interpret the story, do you see the piece of wood floating to Moses in the air? Okay, it doesn't say that happened. It does not say there is a miraculous thing. All of a sudden he becomes aware of a piece of wood, and he's aware that God has shown him this piece of wood. Okay? It is his opportunity to release it. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes the leader needs to let go. Sir. That could happen, okay, all right? What's good is this, okay, all right? Well, I don't need wood, I need water. You got the wrong W, okay? You're not listening, God. Get rid of it, okay? It's totally possible, okay? But when the stick hits the water, another miracle occurs. because the water that previously could not be used to drink becomes drinkable. And the implication in the text is that it becomes drinkable instantly. I mean, it's not like there is this something radiating out of the stick. Okay? The stick, in essence, has nothing to do with the miracle. It is the release of Moses. Once it hits the water, the situation changes by the grace of Almighty God.
How did they know it changed, though? How did they know it changed?
Somebody must have tasted it again, but it doesn't tell us that. Okay? I don't know. All right? Okay? But it's sweet. It says, then Yahweh made a decree and a law for them, and there he tested them. He said, if you listen carefully to the voice of Yahweh your God and to what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commandments and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am Yahweh who heals you. Okay, now. What has this got to do with anything? Do you remember what happened to the water in Egypt? The opposite thing. God made it impotable. They could not drink it because he turned it to blood. And yes, Peter?
It was the same thing that happened with the water that turned it opposite. So Moses hit it with a stick.
Yeah, he's pointing out that in the plague, when it changed, Moses uses his staff and hits the water, and when he hits the water, it changes. Okay? All right, it's a reverse thing. Okay? He is taking them back to another moment in time, and he's saying to them, look, if you pay attention to me, and if you do what it is that I want you to do, if you follow my word and pay attention to me, okay, then you're going to escape what happened to the Egyptians. If you don't, expect it all to fall on you too. So the two occurrences, it's almost as if God is speaking out of the air. I mean, why is he saying this to them? Until you understand the significance in the things that happen. He is now saying to them, if they pay attention to him, they will be free from the disaster that Egypt experienced because Egypt didn't listen to him. Okay? But if they don't listen to God, then they're going to experience the same thing that the Egyptians did. Okay? And he told them to remember who their source was. Okay? Who is the God that heals? Yahweh. Okay? And if they are expecting any other source to supply their healing or anything else, I'm going to get really political here in a minute. If they're trusting anything else, okay, they are trusting the wrong source. Okay, now, I had a funeral on Friday. There were 6 people who attended the funeral I did. Okay, the man who I buried was Bob Harris. Some of you may remember him. Was the funeral director at Harris Funeral Home downtown. I have to tell you that I was really overwhelmed because last Friday, Kevin Mountain, who is now the funeral director there, called me and he told me Bob died, and it's like, okay. I don't mean to say this disrespectfully. It may sound that way, but I did not disrespect Bob Harris. Okay, Bob Harris was an old-fashioned funeral director who did everything according to the book. Okay, so what Bob expected is for all the people who played in his funeral game to follow his example and follow the book. Okay, now I'm going to tell you again, I was extremely fortunate because I had really good professors in seminary who taught me the funeral book. Don't put your glove on your right hand when you're doing the funeral service because your right hand is a symbol of the presence of God. Never do a funeral with your hat on your head. Okay? Take it off out of respect for the deceased. They taught me things, okay, that got stuck in my head and I have never forgotten. Okay? Now, that's what Bob wanted. Pastor who knew the book and who followed the book. I didn't think we were friends. Okay? In fact, I learned at his funeral that there weren't many people, even of the 6 who attended his funeral, who considered him a friend. Okay? Kevin, who worked with him, the present funeral director, said that he learned early on that if you did it right, that was good. You wouldn't hear any criticism. You also would not receive a compliment. Okay? All right? Now, I understand that. If you're doing it right, you don't need a compliment. You know in yourself you're doing it right and you're pleased with your efforts. Perfectly fine. I don't need a compliment. My father taught me that. Now here's the issue. Bob left instructions in his will that I should be asked to do his funeral. Okay? When Kevin told me that, I about fell over. It's like, okay? All right? Now, I knew what Bob wanted. Follow the book. Okay? He wanted it to follow the book right to his grave. That's what he wanted. Okay, got it? That's what he wanted. Now, when we get here to this place in the story, okay, and we begin to struggle with all of the stuff that's going on here, what we need to understand is that what Moses is literally saying to the people, what he's literally telling them is you got to follow the book. Okay? Now, they don't have a book. Okay? Because Moses didn't write the book yet. Okay? So there's no book. But they are expected to listen implicitly to the word of the Lord and to follow his command at every turn. And if they do, they will be healed. But if they don't, they can expect the judgment of God to fall upon them. Okay? It's that simple. Now, here's the deal. Okay? If you're trusting your mask, social distancing, the governor, okay, if you're trusting any other source to provide for you, your trust is in the wrong place. He is our healer. Okay, now, he doesn't always do it the way we want him to do it. So when I say I want God to heal me, I mean I want him to make me better from whatever I am suffering at the moment. I want it gone. Okay? There are times when God heals us by taking us home. And then the sufferings of this present time are forgotten in light of the glory which is revealed to us. That's what he promises. He will heal. There is no uncertainty about it. He will heal us if we follow him. If we trust him, he will heal us. It says, then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. Now, are you ready for this? Okay. First, they get to drink at Mira, where it's bitter. Okay? And then they move on. Okay? How far did they move? They move on. And where do they end up? In a desert oasis. 7 springs. The number 7, by the way, as you know, is often a symbolic. What was that? 12 springs. Okay. Okay, you're correcting me. Thank you. 12 springs. Okay. The number 12 is often a symbolic number like 7 and multiples of 7, meaning the whole thing. One spring for each tribe. She's translating it as a literal number. She's ahead of me. What it means is, I want you to hear this, all of a sudden they've got all the water they can use. Okay? There is no shortage of water at Elim. Okay? God proves instantly faithful. Instantly faithful. Okay? And there are palm trees there. Okay? Palm trees grow in nice places where it's warm, okay, and wet. Okay? We had a call, this is totally off the subject, but we had a call from Uncle Bill, Lois's brother, this week. And Uncle Bill told us that, because he's just moved to a new practice in Florida, and he was saying that for the first time ever in his whole life, he heard on the weather forecast that night there was an iguana alert. Okay? And apparently, if you live in warmer climates, when the temperature drops below 40 degrees, they issue an iguana alert because the iguanas live in the trees like our squirrels do. The problem is that iguanas are cold-blooded, so when the temperature drops below a particular thing, they fall out of the trees. And some iguanas are big. So if you get struck by a falling iguana, it can really hurt. So have you heard that? Have you heard it when you travels? So they warn people in southern climates when the iguanas are going to fall. Okay, there are probably iguanas in the palm trees. I don't know. All right? But it's a pleasant place. It's a wonderful place. Now I'm going to tell you what the dilemma here is. People of God get stuck. Okay? We get so content with the blessing of the moment that we fail to understand there are greater things in front of us. Okay? God's not calling us to sit still. Okay? He might give us a break and let us rest at a place like Elim, but he's not expecting us to stay there forever. And yet our tendency is to just cling with the blessing of the moment. Okay? We're going to hang there. Okay? Just an example of how this works. Okay? I'm not scolding. I'm just telling you this is how it works. Okay, you ready? Friday night, it was cold. It was wet. Okay? It was an absolutely miserable night to go caroling. We're trying to get to the first house, and Peter is grumbling and complaining because the people in the van were steaming. Okay? And the result was that the windshield was getting steam, so he couldn't see where we were going. Yes, sir?
I apologize for grumbling about that.
He was worried because he couldn't see. I mean, he's trying to drive the van to someplace and he can't. The other part that was really adding to his misery was his mother and I were giving him conflicting directions. Turn left, turn right, no, turn left. Okay. And she and I had to eventually realize the best thing to do is one of us should shut up. Okay, because we're only adding to the frustration of the moment, part of which was the windshield. Okay, now it would have been really nice. You ready? To sit in the blessing of the moment. My warm living room where it was not raining with the television on. Okay? Maybe in pajamas. Okay? With something nice to drink. Okay? And not to have to be out there. And I will tell you that when we were setting out, I'm thinking, man, this would be best postponed. Okay? And then the blessing of God fell. Okay, now if you hang with the blessing of the moment, sitting at home in your living room, you might totally miss this wonderful thing that God has in store for you. Okay, just saying, the same thing happened last night. There was a wonderful blessing here. And lots of people missed the blessing because they chose to stay at home and rejoice in the blessing of the moment. Okay? You don't always know what God's going to do when you get there. All right? And there is a real tendency among us to hang back. Okay? That's the problem of Elim. Okay? It says, the whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin. I always love the name the desert of Sin because it correctly... If you're living in sin, that's where you're living, in the desert. Just really great. They come to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around the pots of meat and ate all the good food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Okay? First it's water. Now we don't have enough to eat. And it's your fault, leader. You brought us out here. Boy, are you dumb. Okay? You brought us all the way out here when we could have died back there. You brought us all the way out here and you did not make appropriate provision for our future. What is wrong with you, boss? And it says, "Then Yahweh said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they are willing to follow my instructions." Now, let me just make this clear to you. Okay? The bread is a blessing, which is also a test. The test relates back to what God already told them. You have to do it my way. If you don't follow my instructions, the blessing is going to dry up and go away, and you're going to be sorry. Okay? Now, the blessing here is that God is going to rain down on them bread. Okay? And they are to collect enough bread for each day. But that's not our nature. Okay? I want enough bread, so I'm sure I'm going to have bread tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And if there is an abundance poured out on me today, I don't think anything's wrong with storing up a little bread for tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Some of you are probably going to do that in a few minutes when the lesson's done and you run over into the great room. You're going to be gathering up your bread. Some of you have already gone and gotten your bread. Okay, I will remind you of the word of the Lord. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. If you neglected Bible study to go over and get bread, shame on you. What you needed to do was be in the presence of the Lord under His word. That bread will be over there. Okay? God blesses us every Sunday morning with an abundance of bread. So much bread that it's carried in and taken out. Still in the box, because we can't consume all the blessing which God gives us. But it is our nature to want to make sure we get what we want from the supply God has provided. I particularly want this bread, so I better get over there before all those other bread gluttons get over there and steal my bread. Okay? I'm sorry, but am I telling you what's not true? You know I'm telling you the truth. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Given the opportunity to go collect bread or hear the word of the Lord, guess what your choice should be? Hear the word of the Lord. I have a question? No, I'm ignoring that question. No. Okay, Debbie. Yes, Debbie.
Is that still in effect?
Is what still in effect?
Everything you just said previously.
She wants to know, I think what she's asking, is it okay to put stuff aside for tomorrow? Okay, she's saying she's got a freezer. Is it okay for her to use it? Okay, isn't that right? Is that what you were asking? And the answer is, of course it's okay to use it, unless God tells you not to. Okay, there is no place where it doesn't. This was what's called the Puritan dilemma. The great dilemma of the Puritans is that God intends for you to give away everything you have. Okay, so the Puritans' dilemma was that they were generous and they gave away, but then they received blessing back from the Lord, so that they couldn't outgive the Lord. Okay, so they're caught in this dilemma. Okay, I shouldn't have, but I have, because God blesses us when we follow Him, and that's the truth of the matter. You can't outgive the Lord. So when you start doing things God's way, what God's going to do is give it back to you. Pressed down, overflowing, baskets full. Okay? And what you say then is thanks. It's demonstrated in the miracles of Jesus. When they take the loaves and the fishes and divide them, what do they end up with? Abundance. Leftovers, more than they ever dreamed. More than they started with. Okay? But they were obedient to the word of the Lord. That's the test. Will they do what God says? He says, do this. The human tendency is to do that. Are they going to neglect this to do that? Or will they do what their humanity tells them they ought to do?
She's in the right spot anyway. She's not over there getting bread. She's sitting here listening.
Well, I don't know what she's got under her seat. She's covering it with a blanket. I can't. All right. Yes, ma'am.
But they did not know that God would keep them manna the following day.
No.
So they were going to make sure they had food.
It is our tendency to take care of ourselves rather than to trust the word of the Lord. Okay? And that's the dilemma. I know they're pointing at something behind me. I don't know what's back there. But that is the dilemma. It is our dilemma. It is the dilemma of the children of God in every age. Will we trust God? If God says all things work together for my good, will I trust him? Or am I going to assume that some things work together for my good, therefore I need to take care of the rest? Yes.
The problem is that we don't even know we're doing it.
I know.
We don't know we're doing it.
Yes. Lois is saying the problem is we don't even think about it. It is,
We think we're going to get bread to have for dinner today,
yeah,
rather than be in here listening to
yeah.
God. We think we're having a conversation with someone that we need to talk to, rather than be in here to hear the word of God.
Yeah.
It's a question of obedience.
Yes. Okay. It is also a question of being aware of the tendency within us to disregard the word of the Lord. Okay? To not be in our place when God explains to us what our place is. Okay? All right, let's go on. It says, so this goes on. On the sixth day, they are to prepare on the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So God makes allowance for them to observe Sabbath. Okay? On Sabbath, they don't, to be really honest with you, they don't know about Sabbath yet. We don't have the Mosaic law. But nonetheless, those things still are in existence. In the mind of God, the law of God existed in its entirety from before the foundation of the world. This doesn't come up like God sitting there thinking, oh, that'll be good. Okay? That's not how it works. God knows. He understands. He has it all figured out. He knows where He is taking us, and He is challenging us to trust Him to take us there. Okay? So He's got this all worked out. So what He's saying to them is, they're going to, on the sixth day, they're going to need to collect twice as much because the next day it isn't going to happen. Okay? And He is allowing for them to keep Sabbath, even though He hasn't told them yet to keep Sabbath. He is teaching them to keep Sabbath. Okay, I don't know who the baby was. Selena had a baby last night at the concert. I like babies. Okay, and she brought the baby up to me and she said, "Would you like to hold her?" Okay, so I was holding the baby. Okay, I don't even know the baby's name. I don't know who she was. Don't know where Selena got her. Picked her up at the supermarket. I don't know. Okay, didn't ask questions, but she gave me the baby. And while I'm holding the baby, I was very much aware by watching her that she wanted to stand up. Okay, so I put my arm under her legs so she could stand up. And then she's going, okay, now, what she wanted to do was dance to the music. I mean, she's not, how old is she? Do you know? No, she's not very, all she wanted to do was move to the music. It's an innate thing in her. It's God preparing her to worship. Okay, now the other thing that happened, it was absolutely beautiful. Lois was clapping her hands. And she began watching Lois clap her hands. And I said to Lois, she wants to know how to clap her hands. So I was taking her hands and clapping her hands. Okay, and she's, okay, and letting me clap her hands. Now, what I'm saying to you is that this is how God works with us. He treats us as if we're little children. He recognizes the instinct and the desire within us, and he begins to use that to take us to the place where he needs us to be. As parents, it is our job to recognize that in our children and to encourage them to explore these God-given traits which will lead them into the worship of God even before they are able to worship. Okay, Peter and I, see, when we got Peter, I was already an old man, and we didn't think we were going to have children. And Peter came, and in the morning, we were still living in Berwick. In the morning, I would take Peter out on the back porch of the house, and I would sit him on my legs, so he was watching me, and we would sing praise songs. Okay, and he didn't. Could he understand? No, not reasonably. He could not understand the words of the song. But guess what he still does? Sings praise songs. You want your kid to grow up singing praise songs? Sing them praise songs. Okay? Teach them how to worship from the first on. Okay? Begin to do it. All right, now what God is doing in the text is he is responding to the instincts of the children of Israel. He knows their tendency is going to be to go out there and gather that bread. Okay? He knows that their tendency is going to be to break Sabbath. He understands that. He knows them. But he is nonetheless setting for them the limits. He is showing them how to please him and setting the limits for their obedience. He is being extremely clear. Okay? So it says, how much time? 18 minutes, good. It says, so Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, in the evening you will know that it was Yahweh who brought you out of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of Yahweh, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are you that you should grumble against us? Now, I have to stop here, okay? And I need to just do a little frank teaching, okay? When you have a tendency to grumble against your pastors, the scripture clearly teaches that it is not your pastors you are grumbling against. You're grumbling against the one who set those people over you in spiritual authority. Okay? And Moses makes it extremely clear in these sentences. Okay? You're grumbling against the Lord, but we are the subject of the grumbling. Okay? So they're not saying God did anything bad. They're saying Moses is a stupid idiot who led them out in the wilderness to die. And Moses confronts them with that. He says, you're really grumbling against God. This is God's plan. This is God's will. We are God's servants. The persons you are grumbling against, the person you're grumbling against is God, but the persons you're speaking against are us. Okay? It's right there in the text. Yes, ma'am.
Well, what happens if a person is not this church, but is in the church?
Right.
Where they know within their heart that what the pastor is saying is absolutely wrong?
Okay, then you don't grumble against the pastor behind his back. Okay? You sit down and you have a legitimate discussion about your concerns with respect. Okay, I'll give you an example. You ready? Okay. This morning, I had an argument with Thomas Aquinas. Now, just so you know, Thomas Aquinas, no, not Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas has been dead for thousands of years. Well, lots of them. Okay? All right? I was listening to a priest who was explaining the relationship between faith and reason by teaching from the writings of Thomas Aquinas. Okay, and Thomas Aquinas basically, the priest is correct. Thomas Aquinas basically said that since God is the author of faith and God is the author of reason, and he was also using the word science, they cannot be in conflict. Okay, I agree with that. Okay, he went on to say that if indeed you're looking at something reasonably or scientifically and you think they disagree with the Word of God, the problem is not with them, the problem is with you and with your understanding. If you think there is a discrepancy between science and the Bible, it's because you don't appropriately understand the subject. That's what Thomas Aquinas was saying. But then the priest went on to quote Thomas Aquinas directly. And he did correctly interpret him, okay? And what Thomas Aquinas said is that the Christian faith is entirely reasonable. I'm going to explain it to you. Use this text. Bread falling from heaven is an entirely reasonable thing. It's entirely scientific. It happens all the time, right? I mean, you go out in the morning and there it is, bread laying on the ground for you to pick up. Let's try another one, perhaps a more significant one. Okay, virgin birth is entirely reasonable. You know women, scads of them, who have had miraculous conceptions without sex. No? Try another one, even better yet. Okay? Resurrection from the dead is entirely scientific and reasonable. Happens all the time, right? I mean, there are constantly people coming out of their graves. Okay, see, I just want you to know, I'm yelling at Aquinas, but more at the priest, because Aquinas did say that, but Aquinas never meant what the priest was taking him to mean. He's still defending his original treatise, which is there is no distinction between biblical faith and reason and science. There isn't. And if you think there is, you're wrong. In that case, then it's true that our faith is entirely reasonable scientific, because they're going to agree. But to say that our faith is entirely scientific and reasonable is to miss the point. Okay? Now, I don't think Aquinas was particularly concerned about my objection to what was said. All right? However, the scholars debated that with him at the time he wrote it, okay? Because it didn't make sense to say it. Now, I'll give you another example. This is a funny one. This is sarcastic, okay? Several times when I was preparing for discussing Bob Harris's funeral with Kevin Mountain, the funeral director, he said that the service needed to be short. Okay? He said it to me 3 times, and finally I said to him, I got it. You want the service to be short. And he laughed and said, yes, the service needs to be short. Okay, now here's the deal. Okay, I'll do a short service. I didn't ask why. Okay, when I was at the funeral home on Friday, this guy came to the funeral whose name is Uncle Earl. He lives out where Sam and Joyce live, but Sam doesn't remember him. And he was Bob Harris's brother-in-law. Okay, now he's 90. Okay, and if you recall, the weather was not very good on Friday. So everybody's wondering whether or not Uncle Earl is going to make it. And we're debating whether we're going to start the service on time at 2 o'clock or whether we're going to delay for Uncle Earl, but we don't know whether Uncle Earl's going. We're going to be back having this conversation. And finally the phone rang. And so Kevin picked it up, and guess who? It's Uncle Earl, okay, saying he is on his way, Okay? Can we please hold the service for him? Okay? It's okay. I'm not going anywhere. Okay? All right? And you could just see on Kevin's face that he was not really terribly delighted to be holding the funeral service for Uncle Earl. Okay? Now, Uncle Earl got there. Okay, and we started the service, and I did this short service, like I was told. And everything's done. I close my book, and I sit down. The funeral director's taken over, and Uncle Earl goes, "Can I say something?" And all the other people, all 5 other people in the room went, "Oh." Okay. And Uncle Earl got up, and Uncle Earl did his thing, and it was nice. I mean, it was... Okay. There was a place in the service where Uncle Earl could have spoken, and he was there, but he decided not to do it. Then he waited until the end. He did his thing. And then we're getting ready to go, and we get in the funeral car, and I'm sitting next to the funeral director, and he says, "All right, the service started at 2 o'clock. Okay. He says, we have to get in the cemetery by 3 o'clock. And I said, "Okay, why?" He says, "Because they charge extra if you arrive after 3. And if they charge Bob Harris extra, he's coming up out of his box." He said, "All right, now, if you knew Bob, that's true. He ain't spending any more than he has to. Okay, it's going to be done. We're going to get there by 3 because that's what..." Now, the issue for me is, okay, all right, had Bob come up out of his box, I probably wouldn't be here today, okay? Because the resurrection of the dead is not scientific, reasonable, or normal. And it is a matter of faith. Okay? Got it? It relates to the sermon topic this morning, which is God can do the impossible. He can do it if he wants to, but he doesn't have to make it scientific and reasonable. He can work beyond those things if he chooses to. However, he is the author of science and reason. Okay? Got it? Which is what Aquinas was trying to establish. All right? Now, their problem is that in not understanding any of these things that we've talked about, they are grumbling against Moses, but they actually are making accusations against God. And Moses points that out. Okay? All right? Moses points it out. Okay? You're actually grumbling against the Lord. Okay? And who are you that you should grumble against us because you're grumbling against God? It says, Moses said, "You will know that it was Yahweh when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him." Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against Yahweh. How much time do I have left? 7 minutes? Okay, here we go. It says, "Then Moses told Aaron, 'Say to the entire Israelite community, come before Yahweh, for he has heard your grumbling.' While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of Yahweh appearing in the cloud." Just in case you forget who I am, here is the symbol of my presence. Yahweh said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am Yahweh your God." That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. You know those wafer things in those communion cups we can't get undone? I think it resembles manna. All right? All right? And then it says, when the dew was gone, the flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it is. Moses said to them, "It is bread the Lord has given you to eat." This is what Yahweh has commanded. Each one of you is to gather as much as he needs. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered as much as he needed. God is regulating the gathering. Okay, it says, then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. Okay? You can't store it up. Okay? You can't hold it over to the next day. You have to trust the supply of the Lord. Yes, ma'am. Omer is a measure. I see it as a jar. Okay, you fill up your omer. Okay, you use it that day. You're going to have enough in it for the whole day. However, when you get up and look in your omer jar the next morning, it's going to be empty. Okay, it's not going to last. Okay. Depends on whether you used it all or tried to store up some for the next day. Okay? Now, it says, however, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. I love Moses. I just love Moses. Okay? He gives them the clear instruction that God gave him. Okay? Some of them follow the instructions, but some of them know better than Moses. Okay? So they disregard the warning of God and they try to do what seems right in their own eyes. And when they do what's right in their own eyes, they end up with a stinky smell in their tent. Okay? It is the smell of sin and the smell of disobedience. They have not done what God told them. Okay? The rotten manna, I think, sort of gave away where you were in the whole gist of things. All right? But the fact that they do not listen to him makes Moses angry. Okay? God's leaders, I love this part of the Bible, God's leaders are human. You find a perfect one, you know what you'll do with him? Say it again, Peter, or Jeff. You find a perfect leader, what will you do with him? You'll crucify him. Okay? Because you don't want a perfect leader. Okay? And God uses imperfect people to accomplish his purpose. All around us, he does that. Okay? And sometimes God's imperfect leaders show their imperfection. All right? So Moses becomes angry with them. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as he needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers for each person. And the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, this is what Yahweh commanded. Tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you need to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until the morning. So they're being taught to do Sabbath. So they saved it until morning, as Moses commanded, and it did not stink or get maggots in it, because God had told him to do it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, there will not be any for you to gather, because if there was some for you to gather, guess what you would do? Okay. Nonetheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then Yahweh said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? Bear in mind that Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. This is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where he is on the 7th day. None is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. Okay, that's why we come to church on Saturday. This is not Saturday, this is Sunday. We come to church on Sunday because the fathers of the church made a change in the rules. We worship on the day of resurrection, the first day, not the 7th day. Yes, ma'am.
I always took it that when they gathered up the manna, that's what they ate. When they say to bake it, do you mean they gather it up and then put it in an oven and make bread?
Yeah, it's kind of like a sugar substitute. A sugar substitute. Yeah. You can lick it and eat it if you want, or you can put it in your baking, your cooking, whatever, and it tastes just the same. Okay. So if you want to eat the manna raw, that's fine. Have a little bit of raw manna. Okay. If you want to use it to make something else like apple pie, go right ahead. Okay? You can use it the way it seems fit to you. God is not telling them how to use the manna. He is telling them how to collect the manna, and through it, teaching them to keep Sabbath. Okay? I just want you to know that this is one of the challenges of our time. I'm going to stop. Okay? This is the challenge of the time. Okay? The circumstances of our day are teaching people to no longer keep Sabbath. Okay? And that is a dilemma. Sabbath goes all the way back to the beginning. It is important to God. If you resolve not to keep Sabbath, you are in essence choosing to do life your own way, and you will deprive yourself of the blessing God gives through the keeping of Sabbath. I know all of you are here, so I'm teaching to the wrong people, but there are lots of people out there listening to me. Some I know, some I don't know. The point is, we are to keep Sabbath. There has been no lifting of the law. We are not to forsake the gathering of ourselves together. Okay, I have to stop. We'll take a break, and then we will be gathering again for worship.